So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience raising Mona, my 10.5 month old Rhodesian Ridgeback. Um, and I suppose I'm making this video because I have been looking at other YouTube channels that feature Ridgebacks, and they all kind of have their own take. And some of them seem to make generalizations about Ridgebacks that don't really feel true for this one. And so I just figured I'd offer my own experience. Just I guess like for the perspective, for the person who's considering getting a Ridgeback, um, just so that you have a more diverse range uh, of accounts, and stories about what it's like to have a Ridgeback. Um, so, and I'll make this pretty short. I'll just kind of cover the broad bases. She's actually my first. I think she's seeing herself in the computer right now. That is something that I've noticed with her that I haven't noticed with other dogs, is that she can see things on screen. So there was one time when we were watching a show and there was a tiger, and she got right up. She came right up to the tiger and saw exactly what it was. And I had never seen that before. People say that dogs can't see images on screens, but Mona certainly can. So she's actually the first dog that I have had of my own. We had a family dog growing up that was a Labrador Retriever, and she was a red lab. So I actually fell in love with this color, which is part of the reason that I got Mona. Part of the reason why I chose a Ridgeback is because I really wanted a dog with this coat color. And but comparing, I mean, I guess I could just compare the breed to the last dog that I had, the Labrador. So there's some huge differences. One is that the Ridgeback is short-haired, so there's not as much. You don't get as much hair in your mouth and in your food, which is great. There is some shedding, but it's like pretty negligible. This sweater does have hair all over it, but because of how short the hair is, it's not really a nuisance in the way that longer haired dogs, their hair can be kind of annoying, and you have to like keep, you have to manage that. So that's not really a thing with Mona. Also, like keeping her clean is not really a thing. Like a lot of people have these like elaborate systems of washing their dogs. I barely ever bathe Mona. If she's like rolling around in the mud or something, then generally I will. But sometimes, honestly, like something that's really cool about her, and I'm not sure how much this applies to the rest of the breed, is that even if she does roll around in the mud, there's a lot of dogs out there where you would absolutely have to give them a bath, or else they would just make your entire house filthy. But there's something strange about her coat, and again, I don't know how much this applies to other Ridgebacks, where it's like it kind of just like dries and then just sort of cakes off. Like you could just sometimes just use a dry towel and and uh, and just rub it off, even when she's gotten really dirty, and that's actually all that's needed. So that's a pretty cool thing. I've never experienced that before. So very easy, like hygienically, to take care of your Ridgeback if you have one like mine. Very little that's required. She did have hives as a younger puppy, and I think that might have had something to do with the environment. Like we were on the West Coast, and as soon as now I'm on the East Coast. As soon as we came back here, her hives went away. So it's a different environment, and perhaps that's part of it. But other than the brief experience of hives, it's been really chill in terms of like taking care of her. See, so yeah, comparing her to a lab. One thing that's really cool about the Ridgeback as I experience her. As I experienced this one, and I guess I'm just qualifying it that way because I really don't think that it's my place to generalize about Ridgebacks, because every dog is different, and there is something to be said for if you get a puppy. Like I got her at 2 months old. You can mold the shit out of a young dog. Like you can yes, there are certain characteristics of breeds that are you can't change, and that should be celebrated, or else why would you get that breed if you don't like those qualities that are unchangeable? But there are other qualities that like absolutely depend on how you raise your dog. Like there was someone who made a video who said things like you can never trust your dog with food. If you have food on the table, they'll always eat it. Or, they won't always come to you. Like they only come to you if they want to. Um, like, like that stuff really depends on how you train them. And so, but anyway, for some reason, I really want to compare her to a lab. So, unlike Labradors that are very generally trusting of strangers, as long as you socialize them properly, they're pretty, they really like to please, and they're very trusting. Mona's a little different. She's not as much, so the Ridgeback, as I experience it through Mona, doesn't really care that much about pleasing other people, at least compared to a lab, and also doesn't immediately trust everyone, which I actually like, because she's just more discerning. She's more selective about who she lets in. So there's just more. She's just a more. Yeah, I don't know exactly the right word, but like a more thoughtful dog, or something like that. So definitely more complex, probably a lot smarter than a lab. She's very smart. There were certain things that my lab never did that she's learned to do immediately. Like, I let her in the backyard and then close the door. And as soon as she wants to come in, she'll just scratch the door, and she knows that I'll hear that. And, I'm sure there's plenty of labs that have learned to do that, but mine didn't, so just basic things like that. Like she just learns herself, or, so very smart dog. Super high prey drive, but in contrast to what this person that I saw their video, they said, well, they won't always come, they only come when they want to. Definitely not true if you use a shock collar. So I'm a big proponent of the shock collar, the e-collar. It's the brand is Sport Dog. Highly recommend it. But I would say that it depends on your dog's sensitivity level to pain, because there are some dogs out there. I've heard people tell stories of like, yeah, I tried the Sport Dog collar and I put it up to the highest setting. I think it was a husky owner who told me this, that like, yeah, I was like chasing after something and I put on the highest setting and held it down and was zapping him, and he, you could tell that he felt it, but it didn't stop him. He just kept going after whatever he was after. Whereas with Mona, like I've taught her, she's very sensitive, and so even though she plays rough, as most Ridgebacks do, she's pretty rowdy. She likes to bite hard, and she's pretty alpha when she plays with people. But her pain tolerance, like there are things that really make her squeal pretty easily, and so I put it up to like the settings are like 1 to 7, and then there's like 3 notches on each setting, and so we put it up to like 4. 4 or 2 out of a total of 7, and that gets her attention immediately, and it doesn't harm her. I've done it to myself, and it feels like a kind of static electricity, so it's not harmful. But that stops her in her tracks. She could be chasing, because the prey drive for a Ridgeback is very strong, and so if she sees a squirrel, or whatever, like she's really going to want to go after it. And if I press that button, let's see if we can. She also really likes to look out the window. She really likes to look at birds and stuff. If I press the button, she will stop, in her tracks, and she'll come to me. So I've trained her to do that. So absolutely, you can control your Ridgeback if you train them properly, and if you use the technology that's available to you. They're really great. They're great, like cuddling dogs. I think Mona's like a pro cuddler. And so if you give them enough exercise, like they'll just chill all day with you, which is really awesome. She's very cuddly. She sleeps under the covers with me every night, which is very sweet. So they're very affectionate dogs with their people, they're very affectionate. But they're also very strong-willed and stubborn. And you do need to lay down the law, you know. And so I will say that like Mona has brought out my demons, so to speak, in a way that my previous dog never did. You know, she really tests the limits of your um, ability to be in control. You know, and so um, and also just a thing that I want to say is that there are people out there who believe that there is never an occasion to hit a dog, that whenever you hit a dog, it's automatically abusive and you should be reported to animal protective services or whatever. Now, obviously, there are people that abuse their dogs, and that should not happen. But there's a big difference between laying down the law with some physical force and being abusive and harmful to a dog. You know, a dog can take a smack on the snout um, if it's done something that it shouldn't have done uh, with no permanent damage whatsoever. You just have to be very careful about how you make contact with them. You know, especially there's like the kidneys back here. Like you never want to smack the dog too hard here. Like giving them a swat. I mean, I often swat her on the butt just as a form of affection. Like they're rough dogs, you know. So like if you watch how um, dogs like lay down the law with each other in groups, they bite the shit out of each other, you know. So that's not like a free license for anybody to just like lay into a dog whenever the dog does something they don't like. But it does mean that like yes, you can use physical force sometimes. And with Mona, and this is just my natural way of being an alpha, is that is sometimes required with her to actually respect that you are in charge, you know, and that if she eats that piece of bread that was sitting on the coffee table, she's going to get it, you know, and she learns that that's not okay, you know. And so there are other people that have methods of teaching their dogs not to do certain things without ever laying a hand on them, and more power to you. But I'm not part of that troop that thinks they're better than everyone else because they've never hit their dog. Like there are occasions when Mona has really needed a very forceful learning experience that stung a little bit, and I'm not unwilling to do that, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, you have to be smart about how you handle them. So, but they definitely need a strong-handed leader. Like absolutely. Like you can't second guess yourself with a Ridgeback, or they will immediately. And again, I'm generalizing, but this is my experience with her, and I have heard a lot of other people say this. So this is one of the traits that I think is pretty reliable: is that you have to be comfortable in a position of controlling the other, the like you have to be able to claim that position of the alpha, or else they will take it. Like somebody has to take that role. It's either you or the dog. So you can't really be, you have to be on your A game with a dog. So sometimes like I'll smoke weed, for example, and I'll lose my edge a little bit, and she'll kind of take charge, and sometimes that gets us into sticky situations. So I actually, I mean, I'm not really smoking weed anymore, in part because it was hurting our bond, because it was like she didn't respect me as much because I was kind of more passive and like wasn't willing to really assert myself with her. And so that's an important part of not only training your dog but also maintaining the bond. Is like they actually do want to be part of a hierarchy, part of a pack where there's a leader, and whether it's them or someone else, like that's part of their drive. So they will naturally, look to you as the leader as long as you're comfortable taking that role. What else should I say? She doesn't bark a whole lot, which is nice. She's pretty good with being alone. I've crate trained her, and so she can handle being in the crate for a couple hours at a time. I usually won't do it more than a couple hours, and ideally, there's someone else who's here with her when I'm gone. But if not, then I will put her in the crate, and she does just fine. But yeah, there was a period of no, it wasn't as long as 6 months, but like 2 or 3 months as a baby where it was like, the neighbors were probably pissed. So crate training is a thing, it takes a while. think I'm going to pause this and maybe make a part two.